Greetings to the brightest audience in the country and welcome to the Dominic Enyart Show. Today we are talking about abortion and we are going to go through each and every argument for abortion, debunking it. And as we will see, it's pretty simple. It's really a very simple topic. It's really not a complicated issue at all. Everyone tries to make abortion out to be this wildly complicated, multi-factored, confusing issue with a lot of gray areas, a lot of uncertainty, but it's not. It's simple. It's remarkably simple. Abortion is wrong because it's a baby, and it's always wrong to intentionally murder a baby. So, jumping right into it, what about abortion in the case of rape? Well, a few things to consider. Number one, over 99.5% of abortions have nothing to do with rape. By the way, that statistic is from the Guttmacher Institute, which is a very, very pro-choice institute. Most people who argue for abortion in the case of rape are just trying to make a cheap, emotionally manipulative argument. You typically can ask these pro-aborts, do you support abortion in cases where there was no rape, where rape was not a factor? And they will undoubtedly say, yes, of course, I support that. And so the question is, why did you bring up rape in the first place? Abortion in the case of rape is only worth talking about if you already agree that abortion is wrong to begin with. Bringing up abortion in the case of rape is an admission that you do not think abortion is okay in normal settings, because if you did, that's what you would talk about, and you wouldn't feel the need to be brought to this extreme example. So you should just start with normal abortion, but you didn't. You started with rape, which shows that you admit, knowingly or not, that abortion is wrong in most cases, in normal circumstances. Well, either it's an admission of this or you are just trying to use emotional manipulation. It's one of the two. But your manipulation, it does not work anymore. That argument is no longer persuasive to the masses. So this woman was raped. What, did she have cancer too? Is she homeless? Maybe she's disabled while we're at it, and maybe she's an orphan. Maybe her puppy was just ran over. Who knows? All it is, when you bring up abortion as a pro-choice person, it's just an emotional manipulation. It's just an emotional argument. It's not persuasive, and it really shows that you're just trying to use these cases where these awful things happen to these women. You're just trying to use them for your own political gain, and everybody sees right through it. But you see, the problem is that murder is still wrong. Murder is still murder, even when something bad has happened to you. So if you are raped and you go out and murder a 3-year-old, just because you were raped, that does not justify murdering that 3-year-old. All right, number two, rape and abortion are wrong for the same reasons. They are both violent acts of aggression against other weaker individuals. When he rapes a woman, he is overpowering another defenseless person and is inflicting his own selfish will on her. Now, when a woman pays an abortionist to murder her child, she is doing the same exact thing. She is overpowering another defenseless person and inflicting her selfish will on him. Number three, being a murderer, that is a very traumatizing thing. You may have heard that murderers, what they often say is, they say, imagine if your entire life was focused only on the worst thing that you have ever done. Obviously, being murdered is a serious sin against you, but when someone murders someone else, it hurts them beyond the belief. It hurts the murderer beyond the belief, because going from not being a murderer to being a murderer, that is a very traumatic thing. It is a very awful thing to become a sinner in that way. It is a tremendously traumatizing thing. And now, women who are raped, they ought to be cared for and loved and protected, not further traumatized by turning them into murderous monsters. Being the mother of a murdered child, that will not help you to overcome grief and trauma. That will only further worsen the issue. Two wrongs do not make a right. All right, number 4, children should not be punished for the crimes of their parents. If a man rapes a woman, that man should be put to death. No one else should be punished for his crimes. His cousin is not responsible. His high school math teacher is not held responsible. You would not put them to death for his crime. Yet for some reason, we put the child to death as an atonement for the sin of the father. Why is it that we do this? Why does the pro-abortion crowd, why are they so in support of murdering a child to pay for the sins of the father? It's ridiculous. And of course, so often these pro-choicers, all the time they say that you should not put rapists to death. They are so anti-death penalty. They are so anti-putting rapists to death. And do you see how insane and twisted they are? Do you see the levels of their depravity? Do you see how backward they have become? When a man rapes a woman, pro-choicers say that we should protect the rapist, not put him to death. We should protect the rapist, and we should abort the baby. We should punish the child. We should put the child to death, but we should protect the rapist. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil. Number 5, rapists love abortion. What is a rapist's best friend? A rapist's best friend is abortion. And why is that? Why do rapists love abortion? Well, it gets rid of the evidence. So you have a stepdad, he rapes his daughter and she gets pregnant. What do you think is going to be the first thing that he's going to do? What's going to be the first thought that goes into his head? What's the first thing that's going to be on his mind? What is his first action? Well, is there even a question? Is there even a hint of a question as to what he's going to do? Is it not wildly obvious what he is going to do in that situation? He is going to take her straight to a Planned Parenthood. That is the first thing he's going to do when he finds out that his stepdaughter, who he's been raping, is pregnant. The first thing he's going to do is take her directly to a Planned Parenthood. He is going to murder the child, get rid of any evidence that he raped her, and then he's going to take her back home and he's going to go right back to raping her. That is exactly what is going to happen, and it happens time and time again. It happens all the time, and abortion providers in America almost never report suspected rape to law enforcement. They're required to legally, but they don't do it. They never do it. And Lila Rose, she exposed that. There's wild videos of, people calling into a Planned Parenthood and saying, hey, my dad raped me and I need an abortion. And what the Planned Parenthood operators say is they say, oh, well, call back and don't mention that. Hang up. And then the person calls back and say, hey, I need an abortion. And they say, oh, well, come in. And so Planned Parenthood, they are legally required to report suspected rape to law enforcement, but they never do. And that is why rapists love Planned Parenthood. There is a love-love relationship between rapists and Planned Parenthood. These abortion providers, what they do instead, a rapist will bring their victim to Planned Parenthood to get an abortion. And Planned Parenthood, what do? They help the rapist, they get rid of the evidence, they murder the child, and they send that little girl who's being raped, they send her back home with her rapist. They send her back home with her rapist to be raped time and time again. If you care at all for rape victims, the first thing you should do is oppose abortion. That is the number one best thing we could do right now to fight rape. Well, maybe that and start putting rapists to death. Those are the number two. Those are the top two things that we could do. All right, number 6, children who are going to be born without a father. Right? If your father is a rapist, he's probably not going to be your father. Your mother is probably not going to want to raise you with him. So children who are going to be born without a father, they deserve to be especially loved and especially cared for. These children, they're going to have rough lives, so they should be especially loved, not further hated and abused and even murdered via abortion. Now, I want you to take a look at this image. This is an image of two children in the womb, two separate ultrasounds here. Can you tell me which one of these two children was conceived in a loving family? Can you tell them apart? And then which one of these children was conceived in rape? No? Can you not tell me that? Is that because they are basically identical? Well, yes, of course. Both babies are equally precious. Both of these babies are equally deserving of love and care and protection. Why is one of these babies more guilty and deserving of death than the other? Which one of these children does not have the right to live? By the way, if you disagree with any of this, make sure to check out Anna Richy's book, I Am the Exception. She had been raped as a child by multiple, I don't even want to say parents, people who were supposed to be taking care of her. And just, wow, what a brutal, brutal story of how abortion further entrenches rape in our culture, and how rapists, they really love abortion, and how rape, when a woman is going through that, how abortion will just further shove her down into this dark hole of despair. And you can get that book, by the way, on kgov.com. Go to kgov.com/store. I don't know how much it is, but we try to make it pretty cheap there. But abortion is clearly not the answer to rape. Abortion makes rape worse in every single situation, no exceptions. All right, now moving on. I've been a pro-life activist for a long while. I've gone to Planned Parenthoods. I've pled with mothers not to kill their children, and I've seen the fruits of my labor. Children who would have otherwise been murdered. It's really a wild experience. You guys really need to get involved in some form of pro-life ministry. And I guarantee it will be way more fulfilling than anything else in life. Maybe having a family, maybe that's more fulfilling. I don't know. I can't say yet. But when you see a picture of a little girl, in a car seat that would have been murdered otherwise had you not done something, that I don't know what to say. That does things to you. But point being, I've been in the pro-life fight for a long time. Not as long as some of the pro-life veterans, but I've done my fair share. And I've gone to conferences, I've given speeches, I've been in debates, I've presented many times before the Colorado legislature in support of pro-life bills and in opposition to pro-choice bills. And I've learned a lot of lessons doing this, but one thing I've learned is absolutely wild. And that is the pro-choice crowd does not want you to know what abortion is. I'm going to say that again. The pro-choice crowd, the pro-choice, pro-abortion group in America, they do not want you to know what abortion is. And so what I've done, and you can do this, is there are textbooks that are essentially how to perform an abortion. They might be 400 pages, how to perform an abortion. And you can go to one of these textbooks, and you can go in there, and you can grab an image of an abortion, and just like, what does an abortion look like when it's finished? What does that look like? And there's images of that, pictures. And if you take one of those images and you blow it up real large and you put it on a sign and you go and stand on a street corner, what will happen? Well, pro-choicers, they will come along and they will spit on you. They will cuss you out. They will shove you. They will threaten you. They will despise you. They will hate you. They will mock you. I've had people steal stuff from me. I've had people, track me back to my car to try and, threaten me. I've had people assault me, all sorts of horrible, awful, terrible things. And what's interesting about this is I don't even have to say, hey, I think abortion is bad. I don't even have to do that. All I have to do is say, here's what an abortion looks like. This is what abortion is. That's all I have to say. I don't even have to say, hey, this is bad. I just have to say, that's what abortion looks like. And just from that, just that alone, these pro-aborts know instantly that I am against abortion. Just saying, here's an abortion, just that in and of itself is considered an argument against abortion. And so isn't that something? Isn't it interesting that just showing what it is considered an argument against it? Well, if just showing what something is itself a good argument against that thing, that probably means that it's a bad thing. And you know who else knew this? You know who else realized this? The slavery abolitionists. They knew this. They knew this when they popularized this image. And this is an image of a black slave. You probably saw it growing up in school. This is an image of a black slave. His name was Gordon. And his back has been scourged by whips. It's shredded, essentially. And he became known, the abolitionists referred to him as Whipped Peter. And his name was Gordon, but he became known as Whipped Peter. And abolitionists, what they did is they used this image, this picture, as a way of illustrating how evil slavery was. And the slavery abolitionists, they knew that showing an image of slavery was a good argument against slavery. You don't even have to say any words, but if you just show someone this image of this slave who's been whipped, you just know instantly that the person showing you this image is against slavery. And the abolitionists, they were correct. The image of slavery was a good argument against it. And the same is true with abortion. Just knowing what abortion is makes you more likely to be opposed to it. Interestingly enough, I cannot show an image of an abortion here on this show, or I will get canceled. I will have my account taken away from me. And if you show an image of an abortion on social media, and I've tried this before, you will be removed, and you will get a message that says something like, you are not allowed to show pictures of gore and torture. And torture, you say? Before Elon Musk bought Twitter, I posted a picture of an abortion, and Twitter removed it because it said that I was unallowed to post an image of human torture. That was Twitter's terminology, not mine. And that's an interesting admission from Twitter, from the pro-choice leftist Twitter, that abortion is human torture. I happen to agree with that. Now, if a description of something is a good argument against it, what exactly is abortion? Well, let's take the most common type of abortion just for example. There's many different types of abortion, many different ways to perform an abortion. Let's take a look at just the most common type of abortion, which is the second trimester abortion. How are those abortions performed? What do they look like? These surgical second trimester abortions, what do they look like? Well, during a second trimester abortion, an abortionist, he will use what is called a suction catheter to remove fetal tissue. But sometimes the fetal tissue it might be too large to fit down the suction catheter. So what they'll do is they will use forceps to separate the tissue into smaller bits, and then these smaller bits can then fit into the suction catheters and be removed. And after this tissue is removed, what do? Well, then they will go and double check and make sure they got rid of all the fetal tissue. And that is how a abortion textbook might describe it. The way I describe it might help to paint a little bit better of a picture, a little bit more accurate of a picture. And so I'll do that here. An abortionist will use an abortion vacuum. That's what I like to call it. I think that's a much more fitting term. And they will use this abortion vacuum to suck a baby out of a mother's womb. And the baby, if you perform an ultrasound while performing an abortion, you do both simultaneously, what you're going to see is that while doing an abortion, the baby will be kicking at this vacuum. It will be clawing, trying to get away from this vacuum. It'll be trying to run away from this vacuum. But of course, the baby, it doesn't have anywhere to go. It's inside of the mother's womb. There's nowhere to escape to. If it would, this child definitely would try to do that. And these children, they have a lot of fight in them. They are very precious. They care about life. And so they try to get desperately away from this abortion vacuum. But they don't have anywhere to go. So the doctor in air quotes, will kill the baby. And so then what Dr. Mengele, he might notice in this situation is that if what he might notice in this situation is that if the baby doesn't fit, he might notice that and then think, oh, I have to solve this problem. So that he'll go in there with some scissors or some forceps, and then he will rip some limbs off of the baby so that the pieces individually, a bunch of small pieces, that's easier to fit down an abortion vacuum than one big piece. So he will rip the limbs off of the baby and then suck them down the abortion vacuum, and then finally the torso. But then comes into play the most tricky part of the entire procedure, which is the baby's skull. See, a baby's skull can't easily be cut in half, and it can't be just ripped apart like how a limb might be ripped off of a torso. So it must be crushed so it is small enough to fit through the suction catheter. So a baby's head will be crushed, and that's why you see with a lot of these abortion images of abortion, very often the baby's head is dented. There's a dent in the baby's skull, and that's because it was too large to fit down the abortion vacuum, so they crushed it so it could be small enough to fit. Now, after the baby is removed, there is a very important step for Dr. Joseph Mengele to perform here. A very important step, which is to make sure that he got all of the fetal tissue, or as I like to call them, body parts. And he has to make sure that he got all of the body parts. And why does he do this? Well, if you leave any body parts behind, what's going to happen is that will give the mother a pretty gnarly infection. And so you have to be very careful and make sure that you get rid of every single body part that's inside of the mother's womb. Otherwise, the mother will get a bad infection. And so how does Dr. Joseph do this? Well, he doesn't take a look inside of the mother. No, why would he do that? There's no need, right? And wouldn't you think that that's the place to look? If you're looking for any fetal tissue that's remaining, wouldn't you think that you would want to look inside of the mother's womb? Well, that would not be the right place to look. Because you don't need to. That's not the right place. That's not where you have to go. So where do these doctors, and I'm using doctors in air quotes, where do these doctors go to make sure that they got all of the fetal tissue? Well, they look in the Petri dish. And why look there? Why look in the Petri dish? Well, what they do with this suction catheter, with this abortion vacuum, is they vacuum out all the parts of the baby, and then they put it into this Petri dish, and then they will take a look at all of the body parts of the baby, and they will properly arrange them to form a little baby boy or a little baby girl on a Petri dish. And they will put 2 legs on the bottom, a torso in the middle, an arm on each side, hands and feet, and a head on top. And they do this so they can count and see if they have everything, if they're missing anything. So they go, 7, 8, 9. It looks like we're missing a toe. We have to go back in and get a toe. And then they check for each body part to make sure they got each body part so that the mom does not get an infection. Now, is this making you uncomfortable? Why? Why is that? Why is this making you uncomfortable? Well, as it turns out, everyone knows how horrible an abortion is when you just describe it in plain terms. Everyone knows how evil it is. Everyone knows that it's a baby. And just describing what abortion is itself a good argument against abortion. So when I was describing that, I didn't even need to say, this is evil, this is wrong. All I had to do was explain it. And you know instantly this is wrong. And that is because God has wrote his law on your heart, and you understand that this is wrong inherently. You don't need any explanation. It's just clear that this is evil beyond measure. It's abhorrent. It's the worst sin in America. I'll say that outright. All right, next we hear abortionists all the time or abortion advocates all the time saying, "My body, my choice." And they can hardly contain themselves and they just chant that over and over. "My body, my choice, my body, my choice." That's all they can say. And that's something that we begin to realize about the pro-choice crowd, the abortion crowd, is that if your sentence is any longer than 4 words, they will not have the attention span required to grasp it. And so, dear pro-choicers, to any pro-choicers out there, this is going to be a tough one, but I'm going to say a sentence, and this sentence it's going to be 6 words long. 6 words long. And so I'm going to need you to focus really hard on this one sentence. I know it's going to be long, but here goes. 6 words. Good luck. Not your body, not your choice. Oh boy, I know that's a tough one. I know that's a little bit longer of a sentence. Let's try it again. Just slow it down. Not your body, not your choice. Does the repetition there help? Not your body, not your choice. You see, the body inside your body is not your body. The body inside your body is a different body. That little boy or girl inside of you, they will have their own set of limbs. She'll have her own arms. He will have his own legs, his own torso, her own fingers, his own toes. Unless you mean to say now that a mother just randomly happens to have 20 toes, just coincidentally, and 20 fingers. Is that really something that you're going to say? Are you really willing to go to that length of insanity before admitting that you are wrong? You're really willing to say that a green-eyed mother who has had green eyes all her life now has 2 sets of eyes. One is blue, one is green. Is that really the length that you're willing to go to before admitting that you're wrong? The baby in your womb, if it's a boy, it will have a different type of genitalia than you. Do you still really think that's your body? Here's something that you really cannot get away from. Absolutely, unquestionably, you cannot get away from. The baby in your womb has different DNA than you. Different DNA than you. It has that baby boy, he has his own chromosomes that are different than yours. Most often, the baby in the womb will have a different blood type than you. You know that? The baby in the womb will have a different blood type from the mother. And why is that? Why? Well, because the body inside your body is not your body. Not your body, not your choice. In fact, here's a question. Have you ever heard about a man or a woman dying in a car crash, but her elbow survives, or maybe her knee survives? Perhaps her ankle survived this car crash, but she tragically died. Have you ever heard of something like that? And then her elbow, it goes on to have a entire fulfilling and productive life. Have you ever heard of something like that? No, you haven't? Well, me neither. But it's interesting that every few years we hear a story of a pregnant woman who gets in a crash and she tragically dies, but her baby survives. Wow, her baby survives. That's wild, right? In fact, you should never do this live, but I'm going to Google this right now. Pregnant woman dies in car crash, but baby survives. Okay, let's just see. And let's see. Okay, all right. Here, from the AP, from the Associated Press, let's read this here. Here we go. Pregnant woman dies in California crash, baby survives. And so this is August 12th, 2020, so 2.5 years ago. A pedestrian who was more than 8 months pregnant was struck and killed in a car in Southern California, but her baby survived, authorities said. Okay, let's see. This was in Anaheim. She was walking on a sidewalk with her husband when a Jeep SUV jumped the curve, drove along the sidewalk for about 300 feet, and struck her, police said. The driver, okay, she's being held on bail for $1 million in Orange County. The baby was hospitalized in critical condition, but survived. Okay, that's interesting. And so now this baby is survived, and this baby is now 2.5 years old. And what is it? February of 2023. This baby is 2.5 years old. How is that possible? How could that have happened? Well, because the body inside her body was not her body. Abortion is murder because it's a baby, and it's always wrong to intentionally kill a baby. Man, these pro-aborts, you really have to dumb it down for them. You really have to spoon-feed these people. Murdering babies is wrong. It's evil, and you will be judged by God for it. And you will be judged by me for it too, in addition to that, by the way. This whole thing of don't judge people. Yeah, if you murder a baby, I'm judging you. You are sick. You are a freak. I despise you. I despise your character. You are a murderer. You have no respect for me. But with that said, if you have had an abortion, there is forgiveness, which is mind-blowing. There is forgiveness and even redemption in Christ. And so come to Christ. He will forgive you. And if you do become pro-life, if you do admit that you murdered your child and you were wrong, then, I do not have the authority to forgive you, but God does. And if you do that, then you will be welcomed in my church with open arms. Hey, I am Dominic Enyart. We are out of time. Make sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel and share this with your friends, especially share this with your pro-abort friends. We're going to debunk some more abortion lies and arguments tomorrow. If you want me to cover a specific argument or talking point on abortion, leave that in the comments, and I'll be sure to get to that. Hey, may the Lord bless you, and may he make his face to shine upon you.
Do right.